And I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Ruth Ann Devitt Frank. I'm the Director of Grants Management for the City of Kingston. I'd like to welcome all of you to this public meeting for the city's economic recovery plan that's being developed through the American Rescue Plan Act, which is also known as ARPA. Today's meeting will include a presentation about ARPA and the city's process for determining how to best use these funds. The public will be able to engage live during the presentation via a digital poll, and will also have the chance to pose additional questions and comments at the end of the presentation. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few guidelines to help us navigate the meeting. First, members of the public are muted for the duration of the presentation. When the Q&A begins, we'll ask attendees to raise their hand by clicking the Raise Hand tab. This is found under Reactions at the bottom of the screen. Director of Communications Summer Smith will call on and unmute attendees in the order hands are raised. Questions can also be entered into the chat, which Summer will also address. If a guest has a technical difficulty, please post it in the chat. City staff will troubleshoot, but in the event an issue cannot be resolved during the meeting, a recording of the meeting will be available on YouTube, and the written transcript will also be available. Written comments can be posted on Engage Kingston also at any time. Summer, would you please type the link for that address into the chat for our guests? I'd also like to let you know that we conducted a similar presentation last night that included Spanish interpretation. A recording in Spanish will also be available for viewing shortly. On behalf of the city, I encourage everyone following today's meeting to continue offering ideas and comments on Engage Kingston. And we'd like to hear from as many voices as possible, so please let your friends, neighbors, and associates know that they can also weigh in. Now to begin, I'd like to introduce our Mayor, Stephen Noble. Mayor Noble.
Thank you, Ruth Ann, and thank you everyone for joining us today and helping to be a part of this once in a lifetime opportunity for Kingston to be able to invest funds into our community as we look to recover from the effects of COVID-19 and this pandemic. As Ruth Ann mentioned, over $17 million will be given to the city of Kingston to be able to disperse in a variety of ways that we'll be going through today. But I'm really excited to be able to kick off this process with the community, to be able to hear your opinions, to hear your thoughts, and to be able to get our survey, which is also now available at Engage Kingston, and you'll learn more about the survey later, to all of our friends, neighbors, and folks who weren't able to attend today, so that we can better understand how COVID-19 impacted them and how this funding could go to be able to improve our community, both in the short term, as we do have to spend all of this money in the next 5 years, but also in the long term, and how this funding would be able to make positive, lasting impacts on our community without passing a further burden on to future taxpayers. And so with that, I really just want to thank our city staff who have been working with us over the last couple of months on this brand new federal program, and our consultants at LaBerge as they work to not only hold these public sessions, but additional stakeholder meetings, additional interviews with all of our partners that do this work in the city, as well as with really our whole entire team being able to kind of put these events together. Takes a lot of behind the scenes. And so I really just want to say thank you. And I'm really looking forward to making sure that no idea is a bad idea. And so I just really encourage folks to let us know what they're thinking, and we'll do our best to be able to work to prioritize that, with our friends and neighbors. And so, Ruth Ann, I'm going to turn it back over to you, I believe.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Noble. Now I'd like to introduce LaBerge Group, and Nicole Allen from LaBerge will lead the discussion. Nicole?
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen and get this pulled up. All right, and there we go. Thank you very much for having us for this presentation, talking about American Rescue Plan Act and maximizing the opportunity for the city of Kingston. As mentioned, we went through some logistics. There was a Spanish translation that was provided last night that has been recorded and will be posted on Engage Kingston. So that recording will be available in both English and Spanish. This one is also being recorded in English. And so those will be available for future viewings. As mentioned, we have had a team from the city of Kingston that has been part of our process to date and has been actively involved. I want to thank all of these team members that are a part of this ARPA task force being led by the mayor himself, but also with directly under the comptroller, John Toohey. We have the city engineer involved, John Schulteis. We have Summer Smith, the director of communication and engagement, and then Ruth Ann Devitt Frank, the director of grants and management. So all of these department heads are being very active in the involvement of developing this plan, and also being able to reach out to the public and engage as well. From the LaBerge Group team, we have Ben Seiden, our vice president, who is also leading the charge with the municipal efficiency and government operations, and being able to work directly with department heads on their needs and their ability to understand what capacity they have to be able to take on new projects. Myself, Nicole Allen, director of planning and community development, so working through the projects and working with the engagement process. Also is Dave Gilmore, our senior planner, who is actively involved with all of the outreach, and then together we'll be putting together the plan itself, the economic recovery plan. So as mentioned, this opportunity here today is going to look at what is the American Rescue Plan Act opportunity, how some of the rules and guidelines that are in place and that we have to follow, looking at what Kingston's economic recovery plan will be and how that process is being developed. And then, as mentioned, there will be a digital poll available for participants today. So there'll be live polling, and then we'll talk about the next steps.
Nicole, I was looking at those pictures of the team and recognizing that everyone is smiling. And that's because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to really grasp that gold at the end of the rainbow. But it's also bittersweet. It's bittersweet because while we have the funds because of a global pandemic that has wreaked havoc amongst our communities here in Kingston, New York State, and nationwide, as it's torn apart the fabric of our families, of our educational institutions, and our municipalities, as we've been forced to navigate the waters of what the pandemic meant to us personally, economically, and as a community. But what this money does do is give us the opportunity to invest back in our people, our resources, our businesses, our housing, our nonprofits, and our infrastructure to identify what our greatest needs have been. And as you and Ruth Ann, the mayor, mentioned earlier, this process that begins with these open meetings, that continues with the surveys online, which continues even further with pop-ups, with Engage Kingston website, with stakeholder meetings around tables, allows us to really recognize how we as a people, we as a community, and we as our own families have been impacted by COVID-19. And in doing so, Congress acted boldly, and they provided for the first ever and the largest ever economic stimulus for our communities. They provided $1.9 trillion for a wide variety of programs, of which $350 billion has been set aside for state and local fiscal recovery. What that means is the city of Kingston has received $17.3 million, half of which is already in your bank, and half will be available in at least a year from now. And that at least a year from now means that before you can get that second segment of funding, the city has to create a plan, an economic recovery plan, to identify how you have been impacted by COVID-19 and set forth a strategy and a blueprint to how to invest those dollars wisely, to address our greatest needs, and to do so in a way in which our communities have an opportunity to prosper and springboard out of where we are today and into where we as a community can be in the future. The recovery fund will allow you as City of Kingston to address your most needy and most necessary points, but also allows you to be a little bit flexible in how you address that. If you go to the next slide, I'll go through this again, because in this case, Nicole has the slides on her desk. We have $17.3 million. And within the timeline, is you receive the first half now. The second half I mentioned won't be available to at least a year from when you got the first. The only way you can get that is to obligate your first half. So this plan intends to identify your needs, set forth strategies, prioritize your projects, and obligate the funds. You can get the remaining amount of funds to continue your investment for years to come. But there is a timeline to this. We have to have all of the monies obligated by December 31st, 2024, and all the money spent by December 31st, 2026. So we have to be strategic in our investments, invest wisely and boldly, and make sure that it's not just a blank checkbook, but truly an investment that we can leverage for years to come. Within that, though, we have some guidelines. And the guidelines are that we have 4 pots or 4 tracks that we can invest monies in. Number 1 is to respond to public health emergency and the negative impacts. That also includes economic development, small businesses, housing, but it can also be used for mental health, food, resources for our youth, Wi-Fi and computers, access for nonprofit services. What we have to really identify is how have you as a city been impacted by COVID-19, and what we can do to bring the resources you need to overcome these boundaries, overcome these obstacles. The next area we can put funding towards is premium pay for essential workers. We also have an opportunity to replace any revenue lost by the city of Kingston in 4 years, the year of 2020, all the way through 2024, to see where you have been economically impacted with your revenues, which may or may not change how you can invest in projects in the city. And finally, which makes the city engineers and folks happy, is you can put money into water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure projects. However, while those are the 4 parallel tracks as of today, the program is continually evolving. And you should all know that the US Senate has already passed legislation expanding what you can spend your monies on to include highway projects, other infrastructure projects, and it gives you the ability to use up to $10 million or 30% of your funds for other projects outside of these four parallel tracks. That is only a one-house bill right now. Congress, the House of Representatives still has to pass that bill, and should they do so, it opens up a lot more areas of investment that you can make with these funds. Again, the key word is investment. The city is looking to invest their project or their funds to projects where they can leverage other resources to give you, the city of Kingston, not only the greatest bang for your buck, but the broadest reach possible to truly help springboard you from 2020 into 2030.
Thank you. And there are some areas of the city of Kingston that are eligible for that maximum flexibility by right. So while Ben mentioned that there's the 4 buckets or the 4 areas that are the general requirements, the areas that are designated as a qualified census tract are immediately eligible for more flexibility. And so these qualified census tracts tend to be identified on the federal level, and they have typically 50% of the households are below 60% of the area median gross income, or they have a poverty rate of at least 25%. So these are areas that are disadvantaged. They tend to be more vulnerable populations. And so these areas, we really want to make sure that we're understanding very broadly what the needs are from the community to be able to provide opportunities for greater programs and greater investment. And some of the ideas that are floated, but these are not, these are as examples only. We could look at more on the lead paint remediation within households and community violence intervention, looking at homelessness and supportive housing, looking at affordable housing in general, but also looking at the childcare and workforce and being able to find programs that can create some job opportunities and really be able to have an impact on the community from an economic standpoint. Looking at park improvements and other opportunities that will really have a broad-based benefit as well. And those qualified census tracts are highlighted in the purple on the screen. But so we're really being able to make sure that we want to have those flexibility incorporated as part of this plan. So as far as identifying fund allocation through this process, we're looking at a broad base of projects. We're not screening them as far as what is undesirable at this point. We really want to know what the vision of the community is, tie it back to what those COVID-19 challenges are, and be able to identify what projects are needed historically through your past plans. What have you said you've needed? Being able to build off of that, but also hearing what the public wants today moving forward based upon what they've experienced as far as those challenges. When we look at these projects as a whole, we're looking at what is going to be a catalyst for economic recovery, looking at the ways that we can take these projects and be able to expand upon them to be able to really fuel a strong economic recovery. And from that, we're looking at opportunities, and I used the expression the other day, looking at peanut butter and how we can spread it across, provide the greatest benefit, and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to benefit from this financial opportunity and investment within the city of Kingston. And so looking at how we're going to achieve that through this process is the economic recovery plan. And so while we are responding to the public health emergency and its negative impacts, we're really focusing on the positive and the benefits so that we can turn those challenges into opportunities and turn those into ways to benefit our essential workers, benefit our homeowners, benefit our businesses, benefit our nonprofits, and create stakeholders and partners through this process that have long-term impact. We'll be looking at key projects to be able to identify how we can how we can invest and how we can improve the city as a whole. And through that process, we also have to make sure that we're compliant with those regulations. And so there are rules in place, as Ben mentioned. There are some key deadline dates that we have to make sure that we achieve and obligate funds by. But we also have to be prepared for compliance reporting and being able to make sure that we have a solid project record in place. And that's why there are so many city representatives also involved, because they have the long-term project management as well. But we're also going to be working with nonprofits and subrecipients that will be engaged in this, that will receive partnership funds to be able to make sure that occurs. And we want to make sure that as we do compliance and auditing, that it's not cumbersome, that they are unable to deliver these services to the public. And so it's going to be very important that we develop a process that aligns with the federal and state guidelines and requirements, but also is solid should the city ever be audited in the long term.
The current phase of the project is a situational assessment. We essentially started in August and are conducting the contextual analyses and reviews of prior plans and consultations with the community to understand where Kingston's at and what form needs and priorities within the city. So our current phase 1, which is shown in green on the diagram, will extend through roughly late November. And as I said, involves a review of prior plans, stakeholder and interviews and community engagement, so that we really know what are the priorities and what are the strategies within various plans and policies that we can forge consistency with as we endeavor to leverage the resources and make the greatest impact so that Kingston is strong, economically resilient socially, and a safe and well community in the face of hazards like COVID-19. The next phase of the project will essentially be doing a lot more project vetting, identifying all of the various strategies and needs that have identified and starting to rank and prioritize and evaluate those and how they relate both to one another as well as prior efforts and prospective future efforts. And then and essentially we'll be having our plan developed in 6.5, 7 months, considering we started in August. In January, February timeframe, we'll have a plan. I'll go into that below. And as it was mentioned, we're also setting up for a strong capacity for the community to comply with all the federal requirements, so it's clear that the funds have been well spent and achieved the impact desired. So currently within this forming stage, when we're performing community engagement and outreach, we're meeting weekly with the team from the city to continuously evaluate where we're at and respond. You'll, throughout the course of this presentation today, be directed to the Engage Kingston website, and we have a public opinion survey available for your comment. If you'll please make sure to try to find time to do the survey, and if you can also encourage your friends, family, colleagues to do the survey. We're interviewing each department to understand their organization, their capacity, and furthermore, how they've been impacted by COVID and how they intend to respond to COVID, and all kinds of other stakeholder outreach in terms of we're doing roundtables with key informants in subject areas like housing, business, nonprofits. We're interviewing informants within the community. We doing the survey, and we'll also be attending community events that are as yet undefined, but getting the awareness of the project made at on the ground within the city of Kingston in collaboration with city staff. And then once we have our draft plan released very early in December, we'll be also having a public meeting to review the draft economic recovery plan in December as a next stage of public outreach.
And as Dave has mentioned, we're casting a wide net here. We're really trying to develop a needs assessment that has a wide variety of inputs from all of you as the residents, business owners, but also as nonprofit service providers, those people who are on the ground level supporting residents throughout your community with special needs, different opportunities, and things that we may not hear about at a department level, but are real issues facing folks on this ground, in business, at homes, in schools, in their everyday lives. The community engagement part is very, very important, not only by you individually, but also for people that you may know, or by, again, nonprofits maybe servicing others. In doing so, we're trying to get as much information into our vetting bucket. We're really trying to understand what all your needs are and then putting them through a few screens. A screen which is what is allowed, as I mentioned earlier, as of right by ARPA through the approved allocation, but also looking for how we can expand, justify, and utilize the funds to the greatest flexibility we can. Part of that, though, is looking at leverageability and fundability. We want to see how we can invest this money and make more money from it, not in the stock market, but in the grant and loan portfolio. The state and federal government have many grant programs available that we can use this money to match and really double the effect on your projects. So part of our job is not only understand what your needs are, but try to match them with other funding priorities and leverage that dollars or those programs to extend your fundability mix here in the city. Part of that process, though, is going to have some requirement of cost levels and estimation. And we only have 17.3 million. I use the word only because many projects, if you add all the projects that you have, can be 50 or $60 million. So we have to be able to vet, prioritize, and leverage. And within that has to come some level of cost estimation to ensure that we have enough money for our top projects and top priorities. Now, Dave had mentioned earlier, though, we're talking with department heads because we need to understand what your internal capacity is to administer the projects within the time frame that we have. Remember, this is all new projects. These are all new dollars. Your city staff is already filled to the brim. They're working with the greatest efficiency possible to meet your daily needs. And on top of that, now have this unprecedented opportunity. So within that, we're identifying where your capacity, strengths, and weaknesses are, and what you as a city can do to help augment those capacities over the next 5 years. And in developing your prioritization list and identifying and really narrowing down your projects to your prioritization, we have to sync your projects with your existing plans and your vision for the future. We need to identify those projects that have the greatest opportunity to be complete in the next 4 years, the greatest capacity, whether it's through sub-recipients or nonprofits or your own city staff, to impact those projects and identify those that are going to really lead to the most robust economic recovery that a city can have going forward.
The draft plan will be released and we'll have a public meeting on that targeted for December, as I mentioned previously. The process for economic recovery plan adoption will be through the Common Council. And so we'll be proceeding with the Common Council review in, say, December into January. And the next slide is a review of some of the components of the review timeline going forward, in that we're identifying and addressing issues and formulating the draft plan now for release in December, after we've done more of the preliminary project vetting and prioritization, along with cost estimation, cost updates that may not be provided for projects because they're novel or just to this point haven't been advanced within current planning initiatives. The public meeting on the draft plan is in December. We might be tweaking the plan and it will go through the Common Council's Finance Committee in January, with that process of plan adoption in January and February.
All right. So all of this leads into what the economic recovery plan is going to look like. But as part of this process, this gets to be a bit more where we get to have some of the fun of hearing your needs. This is the engagement part of the process. And we really want to understand from your experiences some of the opportunities that you think need to be included. What are some of the ways that the city can really help optimize the funding to deliver the greatest impact? We're looking at ways to explore and provide that largest benefit, something that would be robust, that would provide the economic leverage that the city needs. And so as we start talking about these catalyst projects, we really are thinking about very broadly that we talked about kind of a full spectrum of ideas. And we want to hear what your needs are. And we're going to go into an engagement process in a second here. This next slide is leading you into what we're going to do on the digital aspect, the digital poll. So there are two ways that you can participate. One is on your phone, and you're going to be able to text live your responses. The second option is to do it on a website, and you'll go through the website. So to actively participate on the phone, you're going to use the phone number. You're going to text the phone number 22333, and the message is NAllen120. So the phone number 22333 with the message NAllen120. And it'll send you a message that you've been actively put into this NAllen120 discussion group. Or you can go to a website right now, pollev.com/NAllen120, and you'll have the same experience being able to type from a computer. So we'll give everybody just a moment to log in and to these devices. And so we're going to go through 3 questions, and I will prompt you with the question. You'll be able to provide a response. And the question will look like this on the screen. So what is the biggest stress for you, your family, or your business caused by COVID-19? So once again, in order to participate, you need to go to either your phone or the website, and text 22333 is the phone number, and then the message is NAllen120. If you have difficulty engaging in this, you can type a message into the chat, and Summer or Ruth Ann might be able to assist. For the moment, if you are unable to get in at all, we will have comments and questions at the end to be able to hear specifically anything else that you would want to share. But once you're in You'll get a message saying that you're part of the group, and then you can type in a response that answers this question. Give everybody 1 second or a couple seconds to dive in so we can start getting some responses. And you'll be able to see these responses live on the screen as we share them as a group. So we do encourage everyone to participate. We do have a lot of comments that we received last night, and we've been able to download them. We've been able to save them. So there will be a full report that is presented at the end of both of these public events. So again, we're focusing on what is the biggest stress for you, your family, or your business caused by COVID-19. This can be your perception, this could be your feelings, this could be how you perceive the community to have had these stresses if you didn't personally have one. But we really want to make sure that we're hearing what are some of these challenges. Definitely these Zoom meetings are a challenge, and recognize that not being able to meet in person is definitely a difficulty. And as we focus on some of these online access, I want to also point out that we will be having numerous events within the city where we're just at some of the pop-ups, the farmers market, various events going on in the city where we can also engage the community, being able to hear directly from people that are attending those events as well. I appreciate seeing the loneliness. I do feel like a lot of people got disconnected during this during this pandemic as well. These are rolling in great. I appreciate all the participation. So as I mentioned, all of these will be downloaded. They will be appendix to the report so that we can share with the city. The city will have access to all of these comments and be able to build off of them as we start looking at what are some of the priorities. Give everybody 1 more minute and then we'll move on to the next question. I do know a lot of the schools are struggling with those resources. We see that throughout the state, not being able to provide the same resources that they used to be able to. So looking
And Nicole, it should be noted that schools will have their own funding.
They will have their own funding, but we'll be working with other agencies or nonprofits that also assist the school with programs. All right, let's move on to the next question.
Hopefully through the school's funding, they can pay for more laptops and computers and school lunches and after school lunch and dinners that they can bring home. That comes from the school.
Right. But some of those after school programs and places where the children might have gone before that they don't have access to. So in this next question, with the $17.3 million, what projects do you recommend for COVID-19 economic recovery? So if you were to put projects at the top of your list, as we said, this money goes quickly, but where would you spend the money if you had to make that decision? These are coming in quickly. I'm glad to see it. If you were going to cast that very large net, as Ben mentioned, thinking broadly on projects, just to brainstorm. I think these are a great tool to help brainstorm ideas. Kingston strong. It's a great comment. You think broader, how do we achieve that? We really want to dive into what those projects could look like. How do we keep everybody strong and fuel our economy locally? We'll give everybody one more minute. Got one more question after this. All right, since we have a pause, almost a pause, park investment, public art and infrastructure, these are great. All right, I'm going to move on to the last question. The last question is, how can the city of Kingston help you? If you think specifically about what your needs are, your business needs are, what would be something that the city could do to really improve your lives, your business, your livelihood, your economy specifically? I know a lot of times we're not used to having that question asked, what can our community do for us? But this is what they would really love to hear. How can they help you? That is great. Strong neighborhoods, support strong neighborhoods, build strong neighborhoods. Any other ideas? Just reading transportation, boathouse on the roundout. These are good. We keep coming back to our people, and I think our people are a strong asset that we're going to focus on as part of this. Our kids, our youth, young adults. diversity in women. I think all of these ideas came forward today. Child care and elder care.
Nicole, the comment came a little while ago, but you had one person who was having trouble with messaging.
Oh, I didn't see it in the chat.
Yeah, it was a minute or two ago.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if someone couldn't get on to the text app or the HTML link through the internet.
Right. If you are having trouble, we will open it up for questions and comments and be able to share those as well. And they will be recorded too.
Thank you.
Give everybody one more minute on this before we move to that open discussion. We have a pause in comments. We'll stop there on stop. So as we move into the open discussion, the questions and answers, we're going to provide every speaker 3 minutes. As mentioned at the beginning, if you want to be a speaker to go down to the bottom of your screen and select the emotion to raise your hand. For more information, we'll be able to take you to Engage Kingston and be able to share that with you. We'll do that in a moment. There is the community survey that's going to be available. It's on the link on Engage Kingston. You will have until November 19th to be able to provide public comments, to complete the survey. We're going to be at these pop-up events throughout the city, talking with all the department heads and various stakeholders throughout the community to really be able to hit home on all of these opportunities to share ideas with us. So again, we're going to share and everyone will have the 3 minutes to speak and go from there.
Okay, we have our first speaker here, Barbara Hill. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Okie dokie. Hi, everybody. This is great and really exciting. Just a question about these pop-up. Like, I find it hard to figure out what meetings to go on. Like, there's the zoning rewrite. This is also on that same page, Kingston Forward or whatever. What's it called again? Engage Kingston. Yeah, so how will, because it's the same time frame of input, community engagement in both proposals, you know, both consulting firms have a big community engagement piece. So I don't know, did you already cover that? I came on just a few minutes late.
Barbara, a couple things. One is we're also part of that project. So when we're at those meetings, the different audience and different focus, but the surveys will still be available. But when Nicole mentioned and Dave mentioned about pop-ups is when you have community events, we may have a 10 by 10 tent up with a survey available for residents that can't come to this Zoom meeting, but happen to be at a festival. It won't be this weekend, but an example could have been your Halloween parade. You know, if that was more of a location specific versus down the road, we could have had a 10 by 10 tent up and put up our map and our survey. So the community pop-ups are like that. But whenever we have a community meeting, if we're there, if we can be part of it, we'll have a survey available for people that want to participate to double participate, if you may.
And I'm just, this is David Gilmore, backing on and adding to what Ben said is the community engagement effort is meant to be casting a wide net. So we're attempting to meet people where they are. So if we can get information about the project to people at events. That's part of the effort, is just to reach a wide range of people, as well as a cross section of the community.
Oh, and so 2 questions. Will there be, so I saw that you have certain census tracts that will be mostly focused on.
No,
What's that?
no, those are census tracts that have the
Separate.
most flexibility. Right now, when I mentioned there are 4 pots of funds or tracts that the money's to be as of right spent in. However, if you're in a qualified census tract, you have a lot more flexibility. The monies are not being directed solely to the purple census tracts. That just gives you more flexibility. I also mentioned that the US Senate passed a bill that if the Congress agrees with it and the president signs it, makes everything a lot more open for a wide variety of projects.
Okay, one more question, although I have a million. By ward, so each ward has so there are 9 alder people, and each ward has a bit of a different flavor, even though there's Kingston-wide issues. Just like with the zoning rewrite, also the same issues, a little bit different in terms of how residents might want to see the quality of life, et cetera. Will there be like ward meetings, or are those up to the council, the alderman of that ward, or how? Will there be any?
Those are good questions, Barbara, Ms. Hill. We're not anticipating 9 separate ward meetings as part of this effort. We will be meeting with city council members or older people, and if they wish to hold their own meeting within their ward and get back the surveys, that's completely acceptable. The more people have the opportunity to go to Engage Kingston to fill out the survey, the better. But it was not part of the process to have 9 additional separate meetings.
Okay, thanks.
Unless, Nicole, you know something I don't know.
Yep, that's correct.
Which, by the way, for the record, she knows a lot of things I don't know.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions? Just go down to the reactions button and you can raise your hand there, and then I'll be able to unmute you or ask you to unmute. Okay, great. Maxine, I'll ask you to unmute. Great, go ahead, Maxine.
Hi. I don't live in Kingston, but I volunteer at the A.J. Williams Myers African Roots Library. I'm one of the founding members of that. So my concerns have to do mostly with Pankaki, where we're located. And we often, I feel, are left out of things because we're kind of in that corner of downtown, not in the Rondout area where there are lots of restaurants and things going on. And I was just wondering how you're going to poll the people in the Pankaki area, because I don't know of any events that are happening there where you could have a pop-up.
So while we hadn't really targeted specific areas yet, we will focus on making sure that we have a broad net cast. And so we may need to just look at ways to focus in that area if you feel like it has typically overlooked, so we can find opportunities.
You can also have surveys printed off and left in locations where your services are provided. Post offices, libraries, nonprofits, senior centers, firehouses, and then people can fill it out by hand.
But
And there are none of those things in our area.
Well, the only other opportunity is if somebody wants to take the surveys door to door, which is not part of us. But if you have a group of individuals who are passionate about the area that feels that there's no other way to get input, we can talk with us offline and get you copies of the survey, and you can bring them to the people you think may be able to answer the questions.
we're also meeting with the nonprofits and a variety of other service providers, including religious entities and businesses. So there's a lot of invites that are going to occur to the community at large as well, to be able to provide that feedback. And we're hoping that those service providers also help us spread the message too. So because we can't do it alone, it's a shared effort.
So if we wanted to have a meeting at our location and you know, encourage people to fill out surveys there, would we print the surveys out from the website, or how would we do that?
What you can do is we'll put Nicole's email in here and you can email her or Dave. And she can get
I
that to
think
you.
from the email, it's going through Summer, just to correct you,
Okay.
Ben.
Summer,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. So Summer can direct you in how best to do this.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we'd be happy to print some surveys for you. So I'm just going to put my email address into the chat here.
Thanks.
And if you want to reach out, we'll figure out how to get those print surveys to you.
And it may be an opportunity to bring awareness to the museum as well, if you coordinate some people to meet and talk about ARPA even at the library.
Yes,
Excuse me, at the museum.
it's a library and community
is,
center.
okay.
You were right. Yeah.
Nicole, someone in the chat has asked for a further description about the qualified census tracts.
Okay.
Meaning they're looking for a description of the neighborhoods. And I know that that information can be found on the US Census Tract website, but is there a description you could provide right now to help our guests understand where those locations are? And
We
what
have a map that's included in the PowerPoint that'll be uploaded to your website, and that'll be able, you can drill right down and see where your roads are. I don't know about you, but I'm not able to say by census tract where I live. But what Nicole can do, because she's got the controls, go back to the PowerPoint and show you the map.
Right. So there are 3 census tracts. There's 9518, 9517, and 9520. So there are these purple areas of the city. We'll have to drill down to tell you what the neighborhood is, and that'll be forthcoming. But it's a large portion of the city that's included.
And I'll just add that these census tracts cover the Rondout waterfront in the Wilbur neighborhoods. They do cover Punahou extending up towards North Kingston. They do also cover parts of Midtown, including north of Midtown, and is that Albany Ave, that parts of Albany Ave, especially the east side of Albany Ave, and then a portion of Uptown. Frankly, I'm quite surprised about the fact that more of Midtown isn't covered. And in fact, I did speak on Tuesday. No, wait, today is Tuesday. Monday, maybe, Friday, maybe, I'm lost in life, with the city planner Cahill regarding what the heck is going on with census geography, that I was surprised by the fact that Midtown wasn't covered as strongly in the diagram that's shown.
Well,
So that
it's
is
on population, residents, income, but you're
Right.
lowering down to the creek and by Able Street and the north by Lincoln Park.
Thank you, Ben. So that's some information, hopefully, that helps you, guide you regarding the geography as it may correspond with tracts and some of the attributes that go into this qualified census tract definition.
And again, if Congress, House Representatives pass the same bill the Senate has, then the entire city will have the same flexibility.
I'd like to reiterate too, though, that these census tracts are eligible. There's further flexibility in how the description is interpreted for qualified programs. It doesn't mean that the rest of the city is not eligible for funding for projects. So let's just point that out one more time. And there is how Ben had described a little while ago, there is something before Congress right now to expand the program to include flexibility across more comprehensively and not just in these qualified tracks.
Okay, we also have a question that may answer Amy's question, but I'm going to ask her to unmute.
Hey.
Hi, Amy.
My question is beyond helping to distribute the survey, which in some cases might really need to be door-to-door canvassing because a lot of people in Kingston don't have access to reliable internet or the skill set to go online, especially people in the aging kind of paradigm, which truly have been affected by COVID-19. So that's my comment. And I'm with right now I'm working with the Kingston Community Internet Project. So as you can imagine, I'm very interested in exploring the internet reliability and broadband issues. Is there any way that community organizations can be of help in raising awareness about this survey? And, you know, is there a way for us to be engaged or included in those who are going to be consulted in this process?
I'd like to suggest that if your organization does regular e-blasts to your constituents, you could include a mention that our surveys and all the information about the project are available on Engage Kingston. If you'd like to do that, we can send you whatever it is you need to know to include it in an e-blast. That's one avenue that could be used to further engage people.
And the other part of this is we had mentioned to the city council members that part of our approach is meeting with nonprofits and service providers that do have that information at the ground level. While we cannot reach every resident, we can also reach those service providers that or nonprofits or organizations that are working with large segments of the population to provide input as to how their residents or their constituents are being impacted. And if you're working on an internet reliability issue, your issues can be brought in via your advocacy into the process. Correct, Nicole? Oh, you're off.
I didn't do that on purpose, but you are correct.
Okay, so Maxine made a comment in the chat saying she could put up a poster in our window with the website. That would be great. I'll put my email again in the chat for everyone, so feel free to contact me for any kind of materials or printed surveys. We might be able to design a flyer or something for you, Maxine, and anyone else who might be interested in sharing it with either, with their lists or storefront windows and that type of thing. Barbara says there's an election and some of the older people will be leaving and new ones coming in. January will look like a new council.
That is correct, which is also why we're holding public meetings in December, but holding off the finalization until January to ensure that those that are running for office have the opportunity to participate and that the new council has an opportunity to opine on the plan as well.
Okay, does
I've been
anyone
looking
else?
for the opportunity to use the word opine for a while, so thank you, Summer.
Does anyone else want to ask a question? I see Liz said she'd like to share, so I'll send you some materials, Liz. If you want to raise your hand, you just click on the reactions at the bottom of the screen, and there's an option there to raise your hand. Then I will be able to call on you and unmute you. Thanks, Michael, for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Anyone else have a question or comment they want to ask?
Cole, while we're waiting, would you want to call up Engage Kingston?
I will. I'm going to share just that. So for those not familiar with Engage Kingston, the website is engagekingston.com. And the way you can find more information specific to the American Rescue Plan is under Project Showcase. It's right now at the very top of the page. So when you scroll down, you have it right here. These are showcased items by the City of Kingston. So if a new event pops up, this might get pushed down in the short term, so it may not always be at the top. But if you scroll further down and look at all projects, it is still on the same screen. Right now being A, you can find it at the top of the all projects list as well. Another way to find more information, if you can't locate it on the main screen, is to go to current projects and click right on American Rescue Plan Act. All three of those ways will take you to this page, which shows you the American Rescue Plan Act information. It provides meeting dates. It'll provide the survey. If you scroll down, we have the survey available on here. So you can complete it until November 19th to click on it for the form. We will have the Spanish version also available up here very shortly. And we will also have the videos for these events. These two recordings will also be available in Spanish and in English. Other key dates will be posted. You have contact information on the side, and you can get information directly related to this project.
So Margie had a good point in the chat. She said it would be great to have digital folders where the flyers, printable surveys, et cetera, are available for us to access. I think we should be able to post them actually on Engage Kingston. On this right-hand side, if you scroll down, there's a section where we can add documents. So I think we should be able to put up some printable survey PDFs there. And then that way people can just grab them right off the Engage Kingston site.
Great.
Do we have any other questions or comments? We got a thumbs up. That's nice to see.
Thank you.
Well, it kind of looks like we might be ready to wrap up. So I just want to thank everyone for coming today. And if you do think of questions or comments that you'd like us to know about, please do visit engagekingston.com. Our contact information is also found there. You can email Summer or me directly if you have something specific you'd like to communicate that way. So we look forward to hearing further from you, and thank you again.
Before you close, I do see one hand up now.
Oh, okay.
We do have one more question or comment. Richard Kelder, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Oops, there we go. Are you able to unmute, Richard?
Can you hear me?
Yes, there we go.
Okay, good. First of all, thank you for a very informative presentation. And, this is more of a comment, I think, than a question. But you're once in a lifetime opportunity, to, create, programs that meet the needs of our citizens, which are many in the city of Kingston. But, as I look around at other cities and, foundations, there's an emphasis on innovation. Everybody's looking at how to take the most and make it into an innovative project. I saw last week that the Bloomberg Cities Network set up a new initiative to work with cities to innovate new projects, and they've been very influential. The Bloomberg Center for Public Information, for Public Innovation, I'm sorry. So I'm wondering what role innovation or understanding what innovation is, or how do you address innovation, or how do you recognize innovation? What role will that play in the in the process of gathering information and looking down the road.
So to dive into that, I think that innovation is going to be something that is explored. I think the city is going to want something that is sustainable, whatever is invested into, so that that has the largest impact, but also has the ability to kind of be able to maintain that benefit long term as well. And so when we look at innovation, it might be ways that can take these programs into a longer sustainable level. And so I think while that term is being used, I think we want to make sure that we're still applying it throughout all of our programs and help everyone innovate to provide that fuel for the economy.
And I think the word innovation has many different definitions in its practicality for use in government. If it's in job training or workforce development, it's as a right allowed as part of this process. Innovation as it relates to infrastructure and smart growth and sustainability as part of the water and sewer infrastructure. Innovation as far as technology can be through Wi-Fi, it can be through accessibility to technological resources for our youth and our schools and our seniors. It can also be in a way that you can rejigger and reimagine your government, but it has to be done in a way that's an allowable use of the resources.
Right.
We mentioned earlier about compliance. At some point, the city will be audited. There's no administrative unit at the federal level or the state level that gives you a stamp of approval on what you do as a project. They have the interim rules and they have the FAQs, which is guiding the process. And then this program is really also being guided by legislation more than a manual. So what we have to do is provide a justification for each project that we do that is as bulletproof as possible. So when you get audited in 5 or 7 years, you don't spend the money, have to return the money or spend it again. So we use the word innovation as our approach and our ideal, but we have to also use it within the guidelines and ability to put the money into the ground or into the services or into the people that need it most.
Thank you.
Hope that answers your question. It's a good question.
To an extent, yes.
So it looks like maybe we're completing our questions. So again, I want to thank everyone for coming and sharing your thoughts, and please continue to check in on Engage Kingston, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.